Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the next chapter of the turbulent love story between James and Dipe, where misunderstandings, schemes, and greed are gradually pulling two deeply in love souls in opposite directions. In the previous episode, a shocking moment struck James. When he came to see Dipe, he unintentionally witnessed her tenderly caring for Tung, the man who once got injured protecting her. But in that moment, from a distance, James's eyes were deceived by a misleading gesture. Tung intentionally leaned his head close to Dipe's, feigning weakness, creating an illusion as if they were sharing a secret kiss. James's heart shattered. He didn't walk in. He didn't ask a single question. Instead, he chose to leave in silence, letting the pain devour his heart because, to him, trust had just collapsed. Dipe, still unaware of anything, simply saw Tung as a benefactor, someone she naturally wanted to care for. But she didn't realize that her kindness had just been twisted into evidence in a deadly misunderstanding. At the same time, a new character is quietly stepping into the eye of the storm. Trang, the woman who has long observed James from the shadows, begins to reveal her true ambitions. She doesn't just want James's heart, but also the vast fortune his family possesses. Backed by her calculating mother, Trang slowly closes in, playing the role of the understanding woman, exploiting the rift between James and Dipe to slip into his heart. But that's not all. An even greater danger is taking shape behind the scenes. John, the sworn enemy of James's family, has officially returned. And he's not alone. He's joined forces with Tung, who was once seen as merely a lovelorn outsider. Tung wants Dipe. John wants to destroy the empire that James's family has built over the years. Two men, two goals, one shared path: to bring James down. The conspiracy has begun. Every step has been meticulously planned. James is caught in a trap completely unaware. And Dipe, the woman he loves, is being pushed further away, not only by misunderstanding but by forces pulling strings from the shadows. Will James realize the truth before it's too late? Does he have the courage to overcome his pain, hear Dipe out, and fight for a love that seems broken? And can Dipe, a girl who simply wants to love and be loved, overcome the cruel twists of fate? All these questions and the secrets slowly unfolding will be answered in today's video. Make sure to watch till the end. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the thrilling developments ahead. While James's heart was still bleeding from the misunderstanding with Dipe, a new storm was brewing, this time from within the very company he was running. A series of major projects that his company had been executing suddenly ground to a halt. Residents in the construction areas unexpectedly gathered in fierce protest, pressuring authorities to suspend all operations. What baffled James the most was that everything had previously gone by the book. Agreements had been signed, and the compensation offered to the locals, an amount considered quite fair by market standards, had been accepted. But now, out of nowhere, the same people turned their backs and began demanding compensation 5 times higher than the original deal. An outrageous figure far beyond financial feasibility, and more critically, one that could cause the entire project to collapse. James felt like he was sitting on a ticking time bomb. The company's entire financial resources had been poured into this investment phase. Construction had begun, materials had been delivered to the site, contracts with partners had been signed. If operations were forced to pause or worse, be canceled, the losses would go beyond money. They would affect the company's reputation, honor, and the legacy that James and his father had spent years and blood to build. What James didn't know was that behind all this chaos was the hand of an old enemy, John. With his respectable facade and sinister schemes, John had quietly returned with a meticulously calculated plan. He covertly approached the residents, spread false rumors through social media and local news outlets, accusing James's company of exploiting the poor and grabbing cheap land for massive profits. He even funded a group of agitators to stir up the crowd, transforming a straightforward agreement into a full-blown media crisis. With every move carefully orchestrated, John successfully planted seeds of doubt. The same people who once trusted James now looked at him with hostility. None of them realized they had become pawns in a dangerous game of vengeance. Now, James stands caught between two fronts. One side is the raging public opinion, the other a hidden enemy who continues to strike from the shadows. And at the heart of it all are wounds that have yet to heal, a love on the verge of collapse, and trust that is being eroded day by day. But the schemes to sabotage James's company projects were only the beginning. John, his mind fueled by hatred and his heart frozen with cruelty, was crafting an even more merciless plan. A plan aimed directly at James's greatest vulnerability, Dype. On a cold, rainy night, John arranged a secret meeting with Tung in an abandoned house deep in the forest on the city's outskirts, a place no one would notice, with no cameras, no witnesses, and no traces. Amid flickering flashlight beams and air thick with danger, John laid it out bluntly: she's his only weakness. To bring James down, we don't need bullets, we just need Dype. His plan: kidnap Dype and hold her in an isolated location. Then send James a brutal ultimatum: sign over all 11 major assets, including shares, real estate, and executive rights to key projects, or Dype would never see the sunlight again. And even if James agreed to sign, John had no intention of keeping his promise. He calmly declared, once the contract is signed, he's no longer needed. Eliminate him, tie up all loose ends. But the plan didn't stop there. John had one more layer, darker and more deceitful. Tung, once James's close friend, now a two-faced traitor, would play the role of the hero. According to the script, Tung would accidentally discover Dype's location, then stage a solo rescue mission, bravely storming in to save her from her captors, who were, of course, all John's men. Every detail would be choreographed like a perfect play. After enduring trauma and terror, Dype, saved by Tung's supposed self-sacrifice, would naturally feel deep gratitude. She would drift further from James, the man who failed to protect her, who appeared to have abandoned her in her darkest hour. And she would begin to lean toward Tung, the so-called hero who risked his life to save her. As for James, if he didn't die, he would be ruined. He'd lose his company, lose the woman he loved, lose his reputation, and if John's plan worked flawlessly, James would be erased from existence. Everything would end precisely the way John wanted, with no one left standing in his way. While James was overwhelmed by mounting crises, from his broken relationship with Dype to the relentless schemes threatening his company, Trang quietly crept into his life, like a sweet shadow laced with danger. The moment she secured a position at James's company, Trang launched her gradual infiltration campaign under the guise of a bright, eager new employee. She constantly sought ways to interact with James. Sometimes she claimed she didn't fully grasp the project files. Other times, she pretended to misunderstand investment procedures, all to justify needing direct guidance from the CEO. I'm still new and there's so much I don't understand. Could you possibly take me on a field trip to explain things more clearly, Mr. James? Her voice was soft, her eyes seemingly innocent but laced with calculation. At first, James responded politely out of professional courtesy and responsibility toward new staff. But Trang, with her graceful demeanor, gentle smile, and loaded glances, made no effort to hide her true intentions. She deliberately arranged to ride in the same car, sit close during meetings, and orchestrated accidental touches and encounters outside work hours. She knew James only loved Dype, but Trang believed that with enough patience and subtle charm, the emotional wounds James carried would eventually be soothed by a woman who was always there when he needed someone the most. The truth was, what she truly sought was the role of a CEO's wife, the power, the wealth of his family, and more than that, a sweet victory in her silent rivalry against Dype. the woman she had always envied and viewed as the greatest obstacle in her way. As for Dipe in the days, without a single word from James, her heart felt like it was on fire. From someone who once messaged her first, cared about every little detail, James had suddenly gone completely silent. No calls, no messages, not even a visit. Worry turned into sleepless nights, into questions that haunted her mind. Could it be he believed something that terrible? Could it be he doesn't trust me anymore? The more she missed James, the more she buried herself in work to numb the pain. She didn't want to be a burden to him. She wanted to try harder, to grow, to become independent so that one day she could stand beside him without feeling small. Early each morning, she went alone to the orchard to harvest jackfruit, then rushed to the market to sell them. Those few sweat-soaked bills weren't worth much, but they were her way of proving, I'm not weak. But the longing didn't go away. Her heart couldn't keep pretending to be strong. One afternoon, after cleaning up her stall at the market, Dipe made a decision. She had to find James. She caught a ride to his house, her heart filled with worry but also with hope. But the gate stood still and shut. Not a soul in sight. She called out, no response. She tried his phone, only the cold, endless ring. Beep beep. Her heart tightened. She sat waiting on the steps outside James's home. The wind swept through her hair. The golden afternoon sun faded slowly, but the familiar figure never came. She had once been the woman he loved, once held tightly in his arms. Now she was just someone sitting silently outside his gate, hoping for a door to open. Just then, Tung happened to drive by and spotted her sitting alone, eyes tired and lost. He pulled over and approached her. How long have you been out here? Come on, I'll take you home. On the way back, Dipe said nothing, but as they passed a familiar cafe, her heart suddenly jolted. Inside, James was sitting across from Trang, the two of them appearing to discuss business. Though James's expression wasn't overly intimate, for someone already broken and hurting, that scene was like a knife to the heart. Tung, stop the car, I want to talk to James. Tung hesitated. He glanced at Dipe, then into the cafe. A flicker of reluctance crossed his face, but in the end he nodded. Dipe stepped out, her legs slightly trembling but her eyes steady. She had to see James. She had to ask him, face to face, to tell him she never betrayed him, never changed her heart. James had already seen Dipe from afar. Their eyes met for a brief moment, but then he turned away. The same old doubts, the image of Tung beside her, again confirming what he feared. He couldn't face her, he couldn't risk letting his heart be shaken once more. James stood up and left the cafe before Dipe could get close. She only managed to glimpse his back, disappearing behind the door. Now, in the cafe, only Trang remained. Dipe steadied her voice. Where's James? Trang smiled sweetly, lifting her teacup. James had an urgent matter to attend to. He didn't have time to say goodbye. Dipe said nothing. She pressed her lips together, nodding slowly, fighting back the tears that threatened to fall. She refused to break, especially not in front of someone like Trang. Outside, James stood at the corner of the street, watching the car carry Dipe away. Her silhouette grew smaller, fading behind the flow of traffic. Inside him, a storm was raging, torn between love and doubt. He no longer knew what was true or false anymore. All he knew was his heart had never stopped aching for that girl. Will true love be strong enough to dissolve the growing misunderstandings? Can James and Dipe overcome the dark schemes silently closing in on them from all sides? When trust begins to crumble, when hearts are wounded, is love still powerful enough to hold together two souls who once meant everything to each other? All will be revealed in the next episode. Join us to uncover the truth behind the manipulations and see whether the light of love can truly chase away the shadows of hatred. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the intense twists to come.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người. Cảm ơn mọi người rất là nhiều vì mọi người đã dành thời gian quý báu của mình để xem hết video hôm nay. Mọi người ơi, trong video hôm nay thì James và Diệp đang trải qua rất là nhiều khó khăn khi cuộc tình của hai người họ đang bị Trang này và Tùng nữa đang chia rẽ, và đặc biệt công ty của James thì đang gặp rất là nhiều khó khăn. Không biết là liệu tình yêu của họ có vượt qua được khó khăn này và hiểu nhầm có được giải quyết để họ tiếp tục bên nhau hay không, thì mọi người hãy đón xem vào tập tiếp theo. Mọi người nhớ là đăng ký kênh, sau đó là bật chuông thông báo lên để không bỏ lỡ bất kỳ video nào mọi người nhé. Và mọi người ơi, nếu như mà mọi người có ý kiến đóng góp gì để kênh mình trở nên hoàn thiện và hay hơn thì mọi người hãy để lại comment ở phần bình luận. Mình sẽ đọc, sau đó rút kinh nghiệm để sửa cho kênh càng ngày càng hoàn thiện hơn. Và chúc mọi người một ngày thật là vui vẻ hạnh phúc. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người ở trong những video tiếp theo. Nhớ đăng ký kênh và bật chuông thông báo để không bỏ lỡ video nào nha.